All right, chapter two. Planning, coordinating, conducting, completing, and complying with the inspection. Overview for the investigator conduct with a variety of the inspection with include with the general ship of the pack with the manufacturer, requalifier, drum, reconditioner, among the other inspection for the in addition for the investigators with the fine fitness for the inspection for the SIS activity for the accident with the investigation investigator web-based technologies, including with the safety performance monitoring, daily ranking report with the itinerary planner and analyticals to target high risk of the inspection during the complying with the inspection investigators document that has material regulation approved with the special permit that may be deficient outdated that does not address the area that should be addressed complying with the inspection include with the number of the different inspection type of the discussed below reinspection with the reinspection of the areas enter and any of the previously subject with the enforcement case for the take up of the purpose of the reinspection verify the complying with by any of the previously violated that has material regulation term of the effectiveness and any of the corrective action if it's made with any involved with the opening and appeal with the closed enforcement case for the eligible the reinspection investigators coordinate the inspection for the open case for the ozone for the appear with the regional leadership of the regional attorney for the closed case for the investigator may proceed with the schedule of the bill without needing to notify the regional leadership of the attorney for the inspection planning tool for the DRR IP with the contained with the exclusion of the company's case for warning letters if it did not appear with the eligible for the inspection for the 1 year and for 6 months for the tickets for each PHMSA performance plan, including 1% reduction for the re-inspection with which leave with the enforcement actions case for the ticket for the region among the others. The imperative of the investigation obtained with corrective of the action that has material regulation violations discovered a complaint investigation or received with the many form of the various sources that may be received via the telephone, letter, mail, email, web. The person with the conduct of the inspection, accident, incident, investigation, attending the meeting of the seminar. Everyone have the right to file with the complaint. The complaint may become with the private citizen, company, local, state, with the government, federal agency, including with the inspector general, will require special handling. The regional chief of the investigators, the office of administration, operating administration, personal file, compliant with many of the may request an anonymity. Joint inspection activity. The Office has material safety, the leverage of the resource of the expertise, fostering marriage partnership with the module administrator of the federal agency, state, local authority. Joint inspection for the complete with another mode of the agency with the other areas, mutual interest for the inspection activity. For the Office has material and partner authority. Joint inspection activities include with the multiple agents, strike force, operation, roadside inspections at site. For the Office has material safety is not primary enforcement agency. The investigator may also conduct the joint inspection activity support for the accident investigation by led by another of the regional director of the cover the effect of the region review the external record for the accident investigation assistance. Regional director will report with the recommendation of the deputy of the National Field Training Office for the approve the disapprove. The SIS program, the SIS State System Safety Integrated State Program. It may objectively implement the risk-based program regulated within either the PHMSA determine the habit of the size, medical compliant with the issue for the any of the often large corporation that can influence of the operation for the supplier with the customer, therefore the impact of the safety and improvement system and the improvement of the safety program they have the implication of the PHMSA to protect the nation against the risk of life of the property environmental while offering transportation hazard material. The system integrity system what is that? Alright, the SIS provides physical the depth of analysis, observation, cooperative valve with the inspection, root cause with the contribution factors that with the transportation safety. The SIS is designed with the PHMS goal with the state has met the transportation, foster collaboration with the industry, ensure the safety, regulation, compliance. SISP fought for the continuous improvement of the participation and development of the quality assurance program to the end of the SISP, develop the implements and monitor the evaluate the practice internal and external communication, ensure compliant with the refer to Chapter 9 additional information SISP inspections. Alright, accident investigation. For the investigator, explain for the complete of the accident investigation part of the duty, the focus of the investigation, investigating the documenting with the role of the hazard material for the communication, the packaging, territory contributed with the call of the surveyor, with the incident, with the additional, with the investigation, collection, remediation, and with the information for the supplement with the dot 5801. Form data with the better track with the report overall company with these incidents. These costs will include human property environmental cost for the up to date of the investigator submit with his or her report with the subsequent above date with the remediation costs will provide with the dot 5801 form will file the program development of the division in accordance with the hazard material regulations found in Chapter 7 of the additional information accident investigation. Planning routine inspection procedure. They have the material safety investigation staff with the small but the conveyor with the vast number of the regulated entity for the purveyor offer the transportation. Have the material the investigation staff must rely on the risk of the approach of the determine who's entity to inspect for the operator in order to maximize value with limited resource for the object of the priority for the entity they are inspecting the investigation based on the type of the packaging offered with the transportation have the associated with the various material value shipped to volume shipped to each for the year with the part of the history of the previous inspection. One field primary goals is to improve the quality of the availability data with the inspection plan with the refocus with the source source of the regulated debt and is posing with a greater risk of the transportation safety and security. Investigators conduct the extent of the review of the analysis, review the internal and external data of the itinerary plan with an effort to improve the process of the maximum resource on the activities over the greater stress. Investigators rely on the tools of the ranking investigation prior to the national inspection plan with the annual property review of the investigator each of the year with the plan target the risk of the consider the likelihood of the consequence of the event, and include the companies involved with a serious incident with a high risk or high consequence of transportation related activity compliant with the habit involved with a repeated incident, have poor safety record with the compliance history for the compliance for the claim that have been received with the international data sort of the concept but not limited to the case management system, has material safety and administration of hazmat intelligent portable ACE missile with the safety and fitness electrical record system of the federal data system are some of the more valuable external data sources from the state of the local partners of the state fire marshal, state policy, state emergency response agencies, and such a regional chief of investigators. Investigators consider the main factor for the identified of the regulated debt, and these some of the four main considerations include exposure, how often it has material shipped with the same company, the volume of the being shipped with the many of the companies engaged with the shipping of the same with similar has material concentrated air of the gasoline, air of the community with the shipment of occurred densely populated environmental sensitive area. Consequently, with the incident involved with the small but the modulated quantity but that has material caused with the injury, damage, or death of environmental disruption, normal social activities exposed for the toxic by inhalation, high activity, radioactive material. Incident history. Does the single person prepare for the region of the history of the incident with the abnormal high with the terrain of the pattern with a certain type of the hazard material involved with an accident, compliant with the history of the person in industry of the region with the have the history series of the non-compliant with the frequency and the non-compliant with the less serious nature of it, but may be leading up to the indicator of more serious issue. Safety equipment and practice with the investigators exposed with the hazard material to present some level of inherent to their risk of safety. The investigators should always be prepared with the safety hazard check with the proper precaution to reduce the exposure. Mandatory equipment lift the minimum. Each investigator will have the following safety equipment in his or her person readily available to his or her vehicles: earplug, 2 sets, leopard, and prime work glove, safety glasses, ANSI approved, safety hose, shoes, ANSI approved, the gas alert, quattro gas detector. Investigator working environment will proper the personal protective equipment necessary, but there should be the referred to the Title 29 CFR 1910 20 Title 29 1926 with the information 1 2 for the wear personal protective equipment. PHMSA will reimburse the investigator with one pair of each time of the shoes or boot that unsurfaceable to do the wear of the tear of the additional PHMSA reimburse the investigator one pair of the prescription safety glasses each time of the prescription change after the glasses unsurfaceable to do the wear of the tear of the use of the gas detection meter for the should now be required for the field operation encouraged to do with the broad spectrum of has material safety field operation and ability to predict with the detect with the hazard environment of the use of the 4 gas detector in a mandatory in an environment where the hazard gas with the responsible expect with the president welding fume with the grinding dove with the cleaning salt with the compressed gas filling with the crude oil transfers while performing an each for the confined space. The definition glossary terms of the example the confined space for the investigator may have to inspect and include tractor trailer, intermodal container storage tanks, portable tanks, etc. Gas detector alarms. Investigators shall immediately evacuate the area to safely determine if the area is clear for the owner's operator and strict for the complete with a periodic maintenance, calibration, replacement of the sensors. Officer safety equipment investigators should evaluate with the nature of the specific inspection with the determined additional safety equipment necessary to include the following coveralls, equipment and flashlight with a hard half, the retroreactive that for the work glove with the RAD or detectors or RAM inspection glove that should be made with the material appropriate with the protective of the hand during the fray of the PHMSA provide with the reimbursement of the above. The equipment investigators should check regional chief investigator before prior to purchasing the equipment with the PHMSA safety manual with the December 2013 includes other safety related information make up of the role of the PHMSA safety organization reporting accident with the near miss for the personal protective equipment guidance for the motor safety vehicle safety. PHMSA safety can be found with the field operation SharePoint site. Developing priority of the agency continuously looking in the way of the maximize of the reach of the promo of the efficiency serve resource with the effective with the engagement active with the regulated with the community PHMSA even the more targeted approach with the coupled with the data with the risk of the analysis to determine the inspection enforcement activities. Investigator concerned with the approval of the supervisor of the conduct of the extent of the review of the analyze of the internal external data of the prior to the inspection focus of the research of the company prior for the risk of the transportation sector with trans safety. Investigator ranks of the has HIP coordinate with the schedule of the IP with approve of the process of the maximize the HIP web-based portal centralize that access the vital information about support, risk management, transparency, decision support, objective of any with the PHMSA or other dot modes that can have the HIP with the establishing an account with the following with web link. Portal phmsa.gov, the analytical solid DL dashboard. Investigators should read for the company history, registration for the permits of the approval of the incident with the prior enforcement activity prior to the investigation. Regional investigators should provide the investigators with additional sort of the information set for determining priorities. National Inspection Plan with the Office of Hazardous Material Safety with the develop the National Inspection Plan with the establish the inspection investigators priority with the coming of the new national field leadership team with the strategistic based approach to develop the National Inspection Team. The National Inspection Plan specifically aims to identify field operation function responsibly, identify the inspection type priorities, provide additional inspection risk module, establish national inspection goal, develop method of the measuring performance outline and update with the National Inspection Plan. Your daily ranking report. The daily ranking report planning of the prioritization tool with the list for the potential inspection site with the organized with the risk factors for the use of the configuration has the material has been industry with the vary for the region. Each for the region with the direct daily ranking report is unique. The daily ranking report is automatically updated with the daily with the operation dictate with that daily ranking report is utilized with the IP with the help of the investigator create the inspection itineraries based on the risk. Our regional staff review the daily ranking report with the develop the specifically for the 10 to 15 entity with the inspector that's from the itinerary known for the IP regional chief with investigator IP tool, develop the investigation inspection itinerary additional regional chief. Investigators and investigators can manually add the data with the priority for the inspection itinerary. The IP centralized the data with the same with the itinerary plan process nationally avoiding overlap with the other investigators. IP use the data with the daily ranking report to allow investigators to create specifically itineraries in order to utilize the time in the field efficiently. Inspection itinerary authorization. Investigator shall submit with his or her inspection itinerary with his or her regional chief of the investigator, approval with the travel and itinerary with the regional chief of the investigators 2 weeks prior to the planned travel to David. Regional chief of the investigator may alter with the itinerary with the number of the day with the need with the prior typical do not span with the entire week. Therefore, the investigators will include with the list of the other inspection activities where the itineraries and all inspection activities must be selected in order to prior proceedings. Priority proceedings. Authorization regional chief of the investigator approve of the inspection itinerary of the regional chief of the inspector for the compliant with the history incident with the history with the type of the hazmat ship including high hazard, high consequent material, the volume of the hazard ship, the frequency, high exposure, and the move of the ship of the regional chief of the investigator shall also consider the opportunities for the investigator to pursue the new learning opportunity with the scheduled inspection which they can complete with the task identified with the investigator training man within such situation the regional chief of the investigator for the company of the investigator developed with the performance of the measure with the professionalism with the verify the completion of the task. Or travel the authorization. Following approval of the regional chief of the investigator may require the travel authorization initiated with the any time of the inspection conducted with the outside of the 50-mile radius of the investigator off with the resident depending on his or her primary working location of the directive of the other trip by trip of the authorization selected with the agency with the travel management system and currently with the ECU system with the blanket with the travel authorization issued at the beginning of each of the official year will be used with the local travel expense inquired to conduct the local inspection. The investigator will maintain printed copy of the travel authorization during his or her trip of the personal traveling with the region of the other than one originally assigned with the must work with the manager of the regional chief of the investigator of the region with the plan with the vision with the approval of the must receive the ensure with the report of the region of the be able to the notification being must be in writing with a copy provided with the investigator assigned with the regional chief of the investigator. Advance notice of the inspection, but the inspection should be normally not announced with the give of the investigator can in view of the normal business operation of advance notice of the prior and necessary with the prior approval of the chief of the regional chief of the investigator directed with the how there with the investigator must verify the ending of the plan to visit and still operating with a reduced off of the amount with the out of business dispositions. Advance notice of the inspection may be necessary to follow the situation. Keep the apparent with the imminent danger of the enable the company with the correct with the danger of it as possible. Will the inspection must effectively conduct after regular business over the special preparation necessary to ensure presence of the record equipment official of the other appropriate personnel who need the aid of the inspection reading circumstance of the regional chief of the investigator director determine the given in advance of the notice would enhance the probability with effective throughout the clean inspection. Conducting routine inspection overview with the investigator determine the compliance with the safety standard with the inspection regulated and even the other hazard material transportation manufacturing reconditions requalified repackaging with the transportation hazard material facility or handle the intermodule hazard material transfer. An inspection should rely on his or her training experience throughout the well-rounded investigation. Safety conservation inspector investigator safety should be the utmost important. Investigators explore the hazard material the present some of the level of the inherent risk to personal safety, environmental, further representative safety agency, incumbent investigators step the good example that should conduct an adequate background research and location ensure the proper personal equipment. Protective equipment is readily available to note. The investigator should never open the packaging containing explosive, radioactive material, poison, inhalation material, with infectious substances. Alright, the code and conduct. The investigator must be knowledgeable to respect the competent of the conducting inspection, behavior of the bowling, and active with the demeaning of the disparaging, argumentative manner of the unacceptable conducting inspection investigation. But it is important that all the investigators conduct themselves with a respectable, professional, with an unbiased manner. Violation PHMSA code of the conduct must subject with a disciplinary hearing with the may leave with the loss of employment. Conducting an inspection upon approval of the arrival of the investigator should first survey the scene with the observer of the emergency exit for the location of the investigator should observe the scene with the order to ensure that he or she has personal pride of the equipment. The investigator may ask to speak with the senior representative responsible for complying with the hazard material regulations. Senior representative main point of the contact may designate employee with the point of contact. Investigator should desire purpose of the receipt of the investigation representative include with the areas to be inspection, manufacture, filing, shipping, retesting, testing, observe the test type of the container, records to be explained, shipping, billing, and the receipt of the personal to interview with the production staff of the retester of the exec interview with the rest of the result of the inspection. Identify all of the parties during the inspection. Denote the name of the official title for the inspector. Must not sign with the form of the release of the waiver. The investigators may sign with the visitor for the mayor gap for the register to control any of the premises while the condition that does not constitute the release of the waiver the responsibility does not limit the prohibited action for the conduct of the official business of the investigator. Ensure the legal effect of any of the document may include confidential he or she can consult with the regional chief of the investigator, his or her PHC 10 regional attorney has assigned before signing before it. Presenting credentials. Office for the official credential given the investigator authority to enter, inspect, with examine the land of the building, equipment of the inspect, with the copy of the record of the paper, ship of the other, perform with the performance of the inspection to do with the authorized federal hazard material law. No, credentials may not be reported in any manner, including the photocopy of the photographing any of the form of the reproduction. As for the copy, the investigator should first offer the business card, finally his or her government of each of the card driver with the license. Investigators shall, upon entry, immediately identify themselves with the contrarious manner of the state for the purpose of the visit and the present of the business card. Police safety security training will require with the facility, even with the request that does not include the signing of the confidential statement of liability. Display of official credentials with the request of the employee with the facility with the determined and necessary care of the official duties. Refusal of the permanent inspection investigator encounter the situation priority with the exhibit the aggressive threatening the behavior they had, but he or she will leave with the contact with the regional investigator, direct with the regional chief of the investigator, direct with the further inspection instruction. If denied entry, the investigator shall, upon first refusal, tactifiably, but firmly explain with the federal hazard material transportation law for the authorized instructed inspection. Present daily entry letter with the prepared by the PHMSA Hazard Material Safety Law Division and the expert with the Department of the Authority of the delegate the PHMSA to give the investigator right to conduct the inspection investigation. Upon second refusal, the investigator shall also certain the reason for the refusal leave with the premise for the immediate leave with the report with the circumstance of the region chief of the investigator. Region chief of the investigator shall consult with the regional director of the deputy of the National Field Transportation Office, the assistant chief of the council with the hazard material law with their staff and the further guidance. After subpoena obtained by the assistant chief of the council, the investigator shall return to the facility with the original letter introduction warrant. If necessary, local law enforcement and entry with the denied, but the enforced investigator shall leave the premises immediately after notified by the regional chief of the investigator. If there's suspicion criminal activity has material law with the investigator should contact with the assistant chief of the council to coordinate with the office of the inspector general. With the office of the inspector general will coordinate with the U.S. attorney office to obtain the search warrant that will be executed by the office of the inspector general. At the appointment of the Office of Inspector General may require the PHMSA to investigate expertise with the hazard material regulation. As investigator with the all of the ministry of he or she with the contact law of the local law enforcement agent with his or her regional chief of the investigator director with the employer interfere with the investigator has granted entry of the premise for the personal interfere with the limited aspect with the inspection investigator. Should determine whether to completely discontinue with the inspection, notify his or her chief, the investigator, for the circumstance of the document and occurrence with the detail of the inspection report, with the explain with the interference with the failure to produce file record of the other document, to ensure the managerial question, failure to give the statement to be imbued. If the deputy of the National Field Training of the regional director of the assistant chief of the council determined with the more information than necessary for the inspection, assistant chief of the council of the officers will prepare the documentation support of the subpoena, but the subpoena can be only be used to obtain the record, but it cannot be gained with the to the access to the premises. If the strike of labor dispute, the investigator shall not conduct the inspection property during the strike of the work with the stop of any type of the picketing of the property except with the under the guidance of the his or her chief of the investigator. Inspecting package. If the investigator has material package with the packaging and fundamental responsible for the investigator conduct with the varieties of packaging inspection with the determining packaging compatible with the material for the proper design, testing, and proper preparation and transportation. Alright, collecting evidence. Investigator may engage with the inspection must collect with the evidence support with the finding of the inspection will leave with the collection item that will be used during with the courts of the investigator support with the administrative, civil, criminal, prosecution, federal hazard materials, transportation law regulations. The investigator must collect all of the evidence with the necessary support with the finding of the non-compliant with the evidence must be collected within the form of the photograph, the videos, interviews, correspondence, photocopies of the records, the invoicing, shipping the papers from the training record with the other appropriate means. Chain of custody control with the chain of the custody and to initiate the evidence should be the receiver of the chain with the warrant or forward the time of the evidence transfer the one responsible party to the next property inventory. The report form shall be obtained with the original signature and insurer person taking copies of the evidence of the custody form appendix B and the truth of the evidence remain legally valid admissible with administrative hearings. This ensure the evidence remains legally valid admissible to the court administrative the hearing of the custody chain maintained until the evidence present within court with the administrative the hearing return to the rightful owner legally destroyed as well in accordance with the policy. Oral statements can be obtained with the personal interview of the support of the violation factors should be arrived at that oral statement the exhibit the support ring violation order documentation with the most accurate amount for the interview oral statement that should be prepared intermediately. Are completing interviews. Most inspection involve the witness in interviewing with the interviewer in particular important become the receiver to describe the operating and provide the leave the identify physical confirmation for the establishing the degree and the knowledge of conducting the interview. The investigator focus on the fact of the rather than opening them substantial and conclusion. Focus on interviewing other review of the contradiction which may indicate with the element probable violation of the further investigation. Result of the fact of the interview should be clearly the description of the process, physical information that shall be shipping the paper, the defect with equipment improperly sealed containing successful regulatory and even the express for the concern of the opera over the proprietary information being disclosed during and after the investigation. Investigators should investigate the inspection of the only disclosure of the right required by law, but the person has the option to mark all the documents required, release business proprietary for the protection of public disclosure event with the request of the under Freedom of Information Act. Safety inspection for the Department of Homeland Security regulated facility. Investigator may inspect the facility with the subject of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security chemical facility with the anti-terrorism standards and with the chemical facility anti-terrorism standard requirement that has material safety requirements and the interest simplifying required regulatory compliance with the industry. Investigator complete with the Department of Homeland Security chemical terrorist vulnerability information authorized user trained in order to have the chemical facility anti-terrorism standards of the script of the site plan with the exhibit that has material security plan requirement by the Department of Homeland Security who does not require the investigator of the CVI chemical terrorism vulnerability information when they authorize the use of training order of the chemical facility anti-terrorism standards. Security of the site plan is assessed with the hazard material relations security plan requirement. The Department of Homeland Security does not require investigators to have the chemical terrorism vulnerability information training. The spirit implementing one government approach of the federal administrative investigators will complete with the chemical terrorism vulnerability and information training as of the part of the required training curve for the course of the inspection facility with the required to comply with the chemical facility training anti-terrorism standards and has material security plan regulations. Department of Homeland Security regulated with a high-risk chemical facility with the presumed of the protecting security of the chemical facility of the terrorist act of the 2014. The extent of the Department of Homeland system security existing in the authority over the facility with the chemical facilities anti-terrorism standards program and established the process of the Department of Homeland Security high-risk facility with the other focus to reach over the location of the facility with the designated high-risk currently of 3,000. Department of Homeland Security established 18-bit race-based performance standard for the chemical facilities must be addressed with the site security plan with all but two has material regular requirements. The security plan include chemical facilities anti-terrorism standards. The chemical facility anti-terrorism approved security plans that are not required. One, to draft the in-route security. Two, list the security duties for each of the person and position responsible for the security plan. These requirements are detailed in Title 49, 172, 802, A3, and 172, 802, B2, respectively. Our Department of Homeland Security acknowledged that the PHMSA investigators should be able to act with the Department of Homeland Security panel information security vulnerability assessment and site security plan with the pursuit into Title 6 CFR 27,400 B2 with the federal employee will need to have the chemical terrorism vulnerability information. If the access information necessary for the performance of official duties, additional Department of Homeland Security program with all those for the access of the SSIP or the site security plan, complete with the chemical anti-terrorism vulnerability information authorized user in training. PHM does not believe in such training legally mandated, but the federal investigator will need to know the information, particularly in light of the hazard material safety requirements. However, the investigator directed to complete with the one-time training with the interest of the easing regulatory burdens. Visitors should complete with the web-based chemical anti-terrorism vulnerability information authorized user training at dhs.gov. Chemical security. Chemical anti-terrorism violation certificate, which is valid indefinitely, will be emailed to the investigator after completing 20 minutes. Completing the 20-minute, the investigator shall retain with the certificate provided with the facility security representative with the need of the grant with the unlimited with the SAV and SS state. Site security plan information. Investigators should ask to see the security plan with the chemical, but they have the security plan with the hazard material but not covered in the site security plan. For all chemical, the investigators should also have the facility with a written plan with the routes security outside parameter list of the security duties of every person responsible for implementing plan with the investigator should process violation information provided with incomplete any of the time investigator question with the security plan information. She or she could contact the Department of Homeland Security. Or your documentation. Investigators may carefully document explanations and statement of the regulated party resolve the probable violation issue and consider the site may provide the substantive support of the alleged hazard material regulation violation. Evidence of oral physical may also be provided with the insight with the extent of the gravity of the alleged violation. All these items must be significant and wide range safety enforcement indication of the refer to Chapter 5 with additional information complete with inspection and investigator written reports. Written statement that provide with the documentation result of the interview, record for the information quality, useful with the state, dependent for the quality of the interview, the technicians, the technique of the preparing a statement whenever the possible the investigator should have the interview preparer, handwriting settings, statement the investigator shall instruct the interviewee, limited to statement of the elements of the violation fact that contributed with the substantiation substitution of the statement of the investigation, instruct the interviewee that to limit the statement of the fact, statement of format, introduction, data, time, location, number, the title of the interviewer, and interviewee, the declaration statement of the voluntary made with the promise of the threats of the correction. Body narrative statement should have provided the fact that the substantial element of the violation, who, what, when, where, why, and how, and which. In conclusion, declaration interview with the read acknowledgement the statement that it is correct for the best of his or her knowledge, voluntary given them without promise and threats of the correction of any kind. Signature interview should sign with the statement of the initial each page for the correction. Interview review with the sign with the statement. The investigator should ask the statement is incorrect or untrue, but any of the respective investigators should know by the reply of the reason, but the refusal to acknowledge or receive it. They include with the exhibit that with inspection report. All signatures should be written with the investigator. May be signed with the review for the interview with his sign, his or her name with the date and the title. Distribution of signed statement should be attached with the inspection report with the exhibit that according with the procedure prescribed by the manual with the state form found in Appendix B. Investigate interviewing press perhaps for the interview should allow with the subject for the create with the conversation you have with the information. Interviewer should ask simple direct question but involve the one subject with the under investigation answer value with the adhesive of the interview should be the rephrase of the question. Interview should ask open-ended questions. How often do you calibrate your equipment? How do you calibrate it? The interview should avoid leading the question will also leave either a simple yes or no response but do the calibrate the equipment. It is critical for the interview to avoid creating the impression that he or she is only interested in convention or conviction. Interviewer should try to improve the interview with the interviewee with the fact that he or she is only with identified with the complaint with making notice of the possible regulatory safety concerns. Hard photographic evidence. Use of the photography must accurately have the recording evidence probable for the violation condition made during the inspection shortly thereafter. The photographs generally admissible for the court level. The truth of the representative of the scene with the photograph. The taking of the photograph substantive the probable violation. Confirm the observation. Provide visual detail of the reviewing during preparation of the inspection report. Informal meetings, conformity hearings. Photographs may be used later. Process identified additional violation project. Photos should not be replayed with narrative violation. Description should be used with the conjunction handmade drawings, schematics to complement the report better, even packaging conformance. Investigators should develop the filings for the ready access for the retrieval of the photograph of the photographs or some of them requested the post of the inspection post-investigation support with the action under appeal. The photographs can also show the invaluable training of the photo documentation best practices. Investigators should determine the boundary of the finished photo, the detail of the marking and the stamp of the embossment, whether it should be accompanied with the observation form. See Appendix B with the list of the available observation form of the prepared. and photographing specifically marking with the strip that would make it difficult to see. The investigator should mark with a marker with a grease pencil highlighting the marker. The investigator should show the relationship between the situation, possible area with the concern of the accidental component, the variance of the gravity, extent of the potential issue, reference side of the photograph, such as the ruler should be included with this pool and connected with the specific item of the overall scene with the emphasis of the side of the distortion and lack of the distortion itemized photographs. Investigators should take the ample the photographs to illustrate the important detail of the difficult to be observed that he or she has photographed with all sides of the packaging, even if they are blank. Investigators should take the series of the photos from far to near to wide with the narrow with a series of photos to help explain the area concerned. Investigators should ensure the environmental intrinsically safety photograph of the spark flash producing equipment is allowed with the investigator photographing several packaging numbering sequential for if the investigator 1 for the photograph 3 UNH1 drum of the UN1A1 drum of the U and should number the drums in first 3. And advisable have the day and the time stamp function with the camera activated with the day of the time and embedded in the corner picture. Alright, completing an on-site investigation for the exit briefing. Following the investigation, the investigator must comply with the exit briefing form. C with the findings. B, the exit briefing form should contain the specifics of the include with the narrative from the Hazardous regulation violation, discover the details, prescription, of the violation. Investigator shall discover the findings of the owner and unsupervised with the company represented with any action of that section with the result of the investigation. If there is question regarding violation, clarifying text of the existing briefing, an example of the violation entry with the existing file with the section 172, 704, A2, and 4. Explanation: ABC company allowed with the has do and has been employed to perform a function required by the transportation has material and comments without function specific security awareness training as required by the has material regulation. Alright, Mickey Mango with the Marlin with the grape in the back of the Marco label that has material the transportation do have the training indicated above. An investigator is required for the company with the official sign of the exit briefing the form of the verification result of the inspection to discover and provide with the company official with a copy with the complete with the exit briefing the form. Designed signature form should be noted with the form of the investigator required with the note with the printed name of the receiver the existed brief for the first page for the exit brief with the record with the printed name of the person reviewed for the sign with your inspection report. Investigator should commit with the assisting with the educating the regulated community the understanding of the requirements of the has material regulation explain with the exit brief and the opportunity shall provide with the rectify the deficiency provide with outreach assistance with the education has material assay assistance team. An amendment of the existing brief that may be necessary for the after inspection connect with the decision between the investigator regional chief and the investigator regional director. Result deletion from the addition of the other modifications existing prior briefing the investigator should be amended. The current exit of the investigator notified the regulator with the part with the change that may be amended with the existing brief of the sound of the company official with the exit briefing must be marked with the word amended adjacent to the existing brief at the top of the first page. No new signature should be obtained. Both exit briefing must be added to enforcement report exhibit. And that was Chapter 2, Office of Hazardous Material Safety and Field Operations Inspection Investigation Enforcement Manual.